Today, for the sake of our children and the health and safety of all Americans, I'm directing the Environmental Protection Agency to put an end to the limitless dumping of carbon pollution from our power plants and complete new pollution standards for both new and existing power plants.
For both new and existing. Hold on to that. President Obama there at Georgetown University yesterday announcing what the Wall Street Journal today challenged as, quote, the most extensive reconstructing of the U.S. economy since the 1930s. The president wants to reduce greenhouse gases by 17% over the next 7 years. But critics suggest getting there will result in lost jobs and higher electric bills. Joining me now, Mark Thiessen, fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, Washington Post columnist and former speechwriter for President George W. Bush, and Juan Williams, who's a Fox News political analyst. Gentlemen, welcome to you. And so the president says he wants new efficiency standards for home appliances, new fuel mileage rules for heavy-duty trucks, new subsidies for wind farms, and he's going after existing, not just future coal plants, but existing coal plants, which is rather significant, Mark.
Yeah, welcome to Al Gore's first term. I mean, look, the president's top science advisor said yesterday that the president is waging war on coal. Well, why didn't the president tell us about his plans for a war on coal last year when he was campaigning in coal-producing swing states like Ohio and Pennsylvania and Virginia? He didn't tell us because he wouldn't be president today if he had done so, if he had campaigned on this plan. Look, this is the exact wrong priority for America at this time. We just learned this morning that the Commerce Department adjusted down our first quarter economic growth from 2.4%, which is paltry, to 1.8%. We're experiencing 1.8% economic growth, and the president's response is to set a goal for reducing carbon emissions. Why not set a goal of getting our economic growth rate up to 3 or 4%, or getting jobs for those 20 million Americans who are out of work or can't find work, or getting back to full employment before the 8 years of his term in office are over? This is going to have the opposite effect. It's going to kill jobs, it's going to raise electric rates, and it's going to devastate the American economy, and it's exactly the wrong priority.
Well, and the Journal points out that the EPA cracked down on future coal plants recently, and when it took some criticism, it said, look, these aren't going to apply to existing coal plants. Don't worry, we're not going after the existing ones, which, you know, affects our electricity bills and so on. But now you heard the president there, he is taking it to another level, and critics like Mark are saying it's going to cost us all a lot more in our electric bills.
Well, I think the framework for the argument is flawed. I mean, first of all, we all breathe air. We all want to be able to breathe. I mean, I spent some time in China, and let me tell you, it's an issue. So the broader context is we need to do something about pollution, greenhouse gases that affect global warming and all the rest. But just in terms of what Mark said, you know, just think about the politics for a second. As he said, last year the EPA announced new regulations that basically put a hold on building new carbon-producing power plants. So the voters knew. And don't forget, Mitt Romney was in one of Obama's ads in front of a power plant saying, we need to shut this down because this kills Americans. So I think that the broader concerns about health are also part of the discussion, and yet might drive up some electric rates. I think President Obama has even said that, because you imagine that this industry is going to have to retrofit to make sure that they can limit the carbon emissions that they put out.
Mark, it's tough to argue with we all need to breathe.
Well, you know, this has nothing to do with clean air. This has to do with carbon emissions. One is confusing two separate issues. Air is actually cleaner in America than it's been in years. So this isn't about clean air. This is about Americans having jobs and being able to afford to feed their families. I mean, we just found a survey that shows more than 3/4 of Americans are living from paycheck to paycheck. They can't afford higher electric rates. Juan, the American businesses, particularly manufacturing, that are struggling in an economy that's growing at 1.8%, can't afford higher electric rates. The president himself said in 2008, his own words, under my plan, electric rates will skyrocket. Why, in a good economy even, would we make electric rates skyrocket? But in an economy where we're growing at 1.8%, we're going to make electric rates skyrocket? And if this is so popular, why didn't he campaign on it? I mean, you can say that people knew. No one knew about this. No one knew that this was going to be his plan. And if it's so popular, why doesn't he put it through Congress and get Congress to have a say in this instead of imposing this by executive fiat, Juan?
Go ahead, Juan.
Oh, I think the answer to that is pretty simple. I think you have especially Democrats, Mark, who are from coal-producing states. And so you have a coal industry that would punish them for the larger perspective. I think the president is responsible for us as Americans overall. And so you need that broader view, because if you leave this to politics, the politics of it are go ahead, pollute, do whatever you can, as long as you're making money, producing jobs, fine. But as I said earlier, we all have to breathe clean air.
But let me ask you that, because we have a short time left. What about that? Because the accusation, Mark, is that he's doing it by, quote, by fiat. You know, he couldn't get it done through Congress, and so now he's just going to do it through the EPA, whether people want it or not.
No, that's exactly right. Look, the president, when he came into office, he had a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate and control of both houses of Congress, and he couldn't pass this. He couldn't pass this when the Democrats controlled both houses of Congress and could overcome a filibuster. So this is not something that has popular support. He didn't campaign on it during the last election or said he was going to do this, and he's trying to do this by twisting the Clean Air Act into contortions. I mean, this is what the New York Times said about the Clean Air Act, that it's twisting it in ways that were never intended for a law that was written decades ago. So he is doing something that has no popular support.
Okay, quickly, Juan.
Let me just say this quickly to you, that there are no new taxes here, because, again, the Congress would have to impose any taxes. So what the president's laying out is a vision for getting people to use alternative energy sources, Mark. Because they can't use electricity doesn't mean they shut down. Remember, nuclear energy now produces, I think it's close to half of America's energy, alternative energy. That likely would ramp up. So you're looking at alternatives, you're looking at a vision, and I think that's what a president should be doing at a time when you can see that it's having adverse effects on our climate and our ability, on our health. Look at the allergies our kids are suffering these days.
All right. It's not an actual
Higher
tax,
electric
but it could
rates
be an
are a tax on everyone.
That's the point from the other side. All right, guys, thank you. Good debate.
Thanks.